There is a gas in millions of kitchens right now that can render you unconscious before you register that anything is wrong. No pain, no warning. You simply stop being aware. Noah classifies it as an asphyxiant, capable of causing unconsciousness and death by displacing the oxygen in a room. Most people who cook with it every single day have never once thought about what it actually does to the human body. The gas is LPG, liquefied petroleum gas. And the most unsettling thing about it isn't the chemistry, it's the psychology. Your brain has decided this fuel is safe, not because it evaluated the evidence, because it stopped looking. That's the story here. A gas that operates below the threshold of human senses, stored in homes across the world, trusted completely, and understood almost not at all. LPG is not a single substance. It's a mixture. Propane, butane, isobutane, propylene, butylenes, and other low molecular weight hydrocarbons, refined from crude oil or extracted during natural gas processing. The exact blend shifts depending on climate. Colder regions lean toward propane because it vaporizes at lower temperatures. Warmer regions use more butane. Inside the cylinder, pressure keeps it liquid. The moment that pressure drops, it vaporizes and flows toward the burner. You turn a knob, a flame appears, dinner gets made, and that's exactly where the brain makes its first mistake. Psychologists call it automation bias, the tendency to trust a familiar system so completely that you stop actively monitoring it. You've seen this work 1,000 times. The cylinder feels normal. The flame looks normal. So the brain files it under understood and moves on. Pattern recognition, one of the brain's most powerful tools, becomes its biggest blind spot. The more times something works, the less attention the brain allocates to it. Here's where it gets genuinely uncomfortable. In its pure chemical form, LPG has no smell. None. The sharp, sulfur-like odor you associate with a gas leak isn't LPG. It's a chemical called ethyl mercaptan, deliberately added by gas suppliers because the human nose cannot detect the actual danger on its own. The warning signal you rely on is entirely artificial, engineered, someone else's decision to make the invisible detectable for you. Remove that additive, and your senses give you nothing. No visual cue, no odor, no taste. The gas accumulates, oxygen drops, and the brain, starved of what it needs, shuts down. Because LPG doesn't attack cells directly, it simply crowds out oxygen. That's asphyxiation. And the early symptoms, mild dizziness, slight confusion, are easy to dismiss as tiredness. The brain prefers probably fine over the discomfort of acting on an ambiguous signal. There's another layer to this. Behavioral psychologists describe something called normalcy bias, the tendency to believe that because something has always been fine, it will continue to be fine. It's the same pattern that keeps people from evacuating before a flood or from replacing a smoke detector battery for years. With LPG, that bias runs deep. Billions of households use it daily. When something is that embedded in routine, the mind stops treating it as a variable. It becomes background, assumed, safe, by default, not by evidence. LPG isn't just a kitchen fuel. Energy researchers describe it as part of the energy security infrastructure of nations. A domestic, flexible fuel source used in agriculture, manufacturing, heating, and transportation. The cylinder under a stove is connected to a supply chain that governments actively manage and strategically stockpile. When those supply chains break down, as they have in conflict-affected regions, the effect hits households immediately. Families in affected parts of India have returned to firewood, coal, and kerosene. Fuels that carry their own serious health costs, including chronic respiratory damage from indoor smoke exposure. The geopolitical and the domestic are not separate systems. They are the same system, seen from different distances. Most people never make that connection. Cylinder, flame, food, that's the frame. Refinery, supply chain, energy policy, household air quality, that's the frame most people never open. None of this is an argument to fear your stove. That would be the wrong takeaway entirely. The real insight is about metacognition. Thinking about how you think. LPG is a case study in how the human brain manages invisible, familiar risk. We trust what we can't see because we've been trained to trust it. We ignore what we don't understand because understanding takes effort. We rationalize early warning signs because the brain prefers comfort over the friction of checking. These aren't character flaws. They're features of a brain built for a world where threats were visible and immediate. The modern world asks that same brain to track invisible chemical processes and statistical risk. That gap between what the brain was built for and what it now faces is where accidents live. The gas in your cylinder is the same gas it was yesterday. The question is whether you're the same person who never thought to ask what it actually is. The most dangerous thing in any room isn't always the thing that sets off an alarm. Sometimes it's the thing that doesn't. If this kind of story makes you think differently about the systems you take for granted, subscribe. We do this every week, and the full article is on factstormhub.com.